Wakey, wakey, rise and shine. It's Europa League quarter-final time. My name is Jack Collins and welcome to the UEFA Europa League breakfast show brought to you by Kia. This week, I'm joined by my friend, producer, presenter, broadcaster, Mr. Ben Haines. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a delight to be here.
You're also, unfortunately, for this competition, a Spurs fan.
I'm so gutted. I'm so gutted. I was all in on a massive Spurs journey right the way through to the final. I can't believe we're out. But I know we're going to get into that later on, so I'll keep your gunpowder dry.
We want to hear all opinions as well, so don't forget to get in touch using the hashtag UELBreakfast. On this week's show, we're going to be taking a look into an unbelievable night for Dinamo Zagreb, sorry mate, and taking a look through the bracket as well at all the fixtures that are jumping out to us this time round. But Ben, your work has taken you all over Europe as a broadcaster with Europa League. What do you think it is that makes this competition so unique, so special?
Well, I think that the travel part of it is really exciting. But I think what's really, really interesting and really fascinating is you're seeing teams with unwritten journeys, unwritten stories, waiting to start their Europa League journey that maybe have never been involved in European football before. So you're getting to visit places that you've never seen before, experience cultures that you've never seen before. But on top of that, there's a really unique spirit with the Europa League. Teams are so excited to welcome some of the European giants that we've seen over the years that are in the competition this year, AC Milan, Man United, for example. Teams are so happy to be welcoming these huge sides to play at their home stadium. It's not necessarily a case of making it easy, but it's a case of we'll welcome you, we'll embrace you, and then once we get onto the pitch, everything changes.
Yeah, well, we are at the business end of the competition, so should we take a little look at that road to Gdansk? We talked about Granada at length with Sam last week, and they got through that second leg against Molde, only to be drawn against the favourites in Manchester United. This is a proper David versus Goliath affair.
Wonderful. Fernandes. Oh! Diallo with the back header.
Next one up, Ajax versus Roma. A tie so tasty you could spread it on your toast. I was thinking about this. Justin Kluivert derby, Urbi Emanuelson, Martin Stecklenburg, Christian Chivu, Sami Kuffour. But two teams for me who I think are genuinely mythical giants of Europe. You think about Roma, you think about the red and gold, the wolf, Il Lupi, the whole thing around the club feels mythical, Romulus and Remus. And then you go to Ajax and you have, yes, the youth academy, but also the three red crosses, the fact it's named after Ajax the Greater. There is a real kind of Greeks versus Romans mythology involved in this tie.
Well, it's not as if you haven't done your research for this one, Jack. Spot on. I mean, I suppose for Ajax, they're another team that with phenomenal European pedigree, but really, really good record at home in the Europa League. And I think what's really interesting, particularly for us on this show, is the talk-up that we gave Shakhtar Donetsk in the last round, and here we are sitting here talking about Roma. So incredibly exciting to see them progress as well.
I think it's just about my favourite tie of the round. Also, Arsenal play Slavia, and you look at Arsenal's domestic form stuttering in the league. This now represents probably their best chance, obviously silverware, but also qualification for European competition next year.
Yeah, and Arsenal are in a really interesting transition at the moment. They seem to be caught between two kind of eras. This idea of being really practical and finding a way to win games domestically, and also sticking to a brand new philosophy that Mikel Arteta's got and really wants to instill in his players. So with that in mind, I think the Europa League represents the only real chance of them making their way back into European football next year.
They also rotated quite heavily at the weekend, and I think that shows, isn't it? All the eggs are into this Europa League basket. They're on the same side of the bracket as their former manager Unai Emery, who now is obviously in charge of Villarreal, and they play Dinamo Zagreb. We're going to be looking at that tie in a little bit more depth a little bit later. But talking of the bracket, which side of this do you see as more difficult?
Well, definitely more difficult would be your side with Ajax and United in, for example, but I think for me personally, watching on as a fan, the other side is more exciting. That's the side that I'm going to be watching more closely because I'm fascinated with those stories and the idea of perhaps there being an underdog that might sneak through to the final.
Now let's take a little peek around social media from last week, and got to start here on Instagram. Obviously, Dean Henderson made an unbelievable save from Zlatan Ibrahimovic at the end of the Manchester United versus AC Milan game and put it up on the Instagram, and Bruno Fernandes was having absolutely none of it.
Yeah, look, for starters, a photographer should get a bonus for making him look that good, but I did quite enjoy seeing Bruno Fernandes calling Dean Henderson out for getting a little bit spectacular with that one unnecessarily.
Yeah, and then we move on to Twitter, where Sevilla, obviously multiple-time champions of this competition, congratulating their Andalusian neighbours, Granada, for their progression into the quarterfinals. And I thought this was nice. We talked about the fact that Granada last week were the Andalusian representatives in a competition dominated by the region. And just nice to see that little bit of camaraderie here.
I'm interested by this, Jack, because I know you, low-key, have got a little bit of a soft spot for one of Sevilla's rivals, haven't you?
Real Betis never got to this stage of the competition, and I imagine there's a little bit of a dig in here from Sevilla, but we'll skip past that. We'll skip past that for now. Dinamo Zagreb, obviously victorious, and before the game they posted this image of them getting ready, and well, I'll let you decide whether they were ready or not.
Well, it certainly seemed like they were ready, but they not only started very well, but they grew into the game. I had a moment, I think, when they sort of scored the first goal. I just thought, hang on a second, they're not going to do this, are they? And unfortunately for me as a Spurs fan, they blooming did.
Yeah, the momentum shifted, but it was that war paint on. And this is a nice touch. Ajax versus Roma announced, obviously, on the draw day. And the very same day, Ajax had posted a little throwback to the last time these two sides met in European competition. Now this, we were talking about mythical. This is a mythical game.
What a treat. I mean, if you get a chance, I would encourage people at home to go and have a look at this flashback, because it was Capello versus Koeman. Some of the players that were on show in that game, Cafu, Panucci, Cassano, Del Vecchio, Van der Vaart, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Maxwell, so many exciting players that do tap into exactly what we were talking about earlier in the show, that sort of mythical echo of sort of previous glories.
Well, enough of the past and back to the present, and let us know who you think is going to get through this year's bracket using the hashtag UELBreakfast. Along with our partners at Kia, we've been picking our favourite celebrations from this year's competition. This week, we had to shine a light on Dinamo Zagreb's Mislav Orsic. An amazing performance and a gorgeous hat-trick. It's just incredibly special, Ben.
Why are you taking so much joy in saying that to me? Yeah, it was special.
I feel like I'm driving a knife in, right? But I would say sorry, but I have no remorse whatsoever.
It was wonderful to watch, wasn't it?
It's beautiful and aesthetically so pleasing.
I have to say, I think the third one is the one for me that stands out amongst all of them. I know the first was probably the sweetest strike. I know the second was the most composed finish. But the third one, at that point in the game, going so deep into the match, to drift away from a number of defenders, but also to have the confidence to go for that and then beat the keeper at the near post. It's a phenomenal goal and it stings a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. Orsic has had quite a weird career path. He started off at his hometown club, Inter Zaprosic. He spent some time there and then moved to Spezia in Serie B. Basically failed to make any sort of impression. And the next time he really pops into consciousness, he's over in the K-League in South Korea, where he's playing for Jeonnam Dragons. He spends some time there, does quite well, pops over to China for a little bit, returns to South Korea, and then comes back to his hometown of Zagreb to join Dinamo. And this isn't his first European hat-trick. He actually also scored a hat-trick on his Champions League debut against Atalanta last season.
I mean, that is an unbelievable journey, isn't it? It's the sort of thing that you find in the Europa League. It's the sort of thing that you can actually talk about and champion in this competition because it is so weird and wonderful.
And for more celebrations and special content, make sure you check out Kia's YouTube channel.
Welcome back to the draw for the UEFA Europa League quarterfinals. Dinamo Zagreb produced arguably the result of the round after Miroslav Orsic and his hat-trick to see off Tottenham Hotspur.
Dinamo. And Dinamo will face
Villarreal.
Villarreal. Biće nam, ja mislim, puno lakše sada igrati s obzirom da smo sami sebi zapravo dokazali da možemo se nositi sa ekipama kao što su Tottenham. Stvaraju me takve rezultate, stvarno srce mi je puno, uživam svaki dan dolaziti ovdje na treninge i to je to, ispunjavam svoj san.
A famous night for Dinamo then, and we talked about unwritten stories at the top of the show. This feels like one of those. It feels like a team with real ambitions to kick on and go and win this trophy. We perhaps shouldn't have been surprised, given their record at home, about this performance or the result.
Yeah, and I mean, they had a very, very good performance against Krasnodar in the previous round. Very good away from home in that one, but then so professional when they brought it back in the second leg. And I think one of the things that we see with them is that they don't change their team a lot. They don't change their playing style a lot. They're very aggressive in the midfield. Just stop anyone building any momentum, which is exactly what you need to do at this stage of a competition.
Yeah, they've conceded once at home in this competition, and over the last 3 campaigns in Europe, they've only lost 1 game at the Maximir, and that was to Man City in the Champions League. Why are they so difficult to play against at home?
I think in previous seasons you might have made the claim that it's down to atmosphere, because they do create a phenomenal and very, very uninviting atmosphere when it gets to match day. I think this season it's all about getting opposition teams out of their comfort zone. I think some sides perhaps almost roll out the red carpet and make it a little bit too easy, particularly behind closed doors, to come and get a result without the fans there to spur them on. But now, even with no fans there to make it uncomfortable, the team do a wonderful job of just making the game have that little bit more bite.
Yeah, and those vociferous fans are such a big part of what makes this place scary. But as you say, it's one of those things where just the actual ground itself now seems to hold that terror.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an intimidating place to go. And it's also somewhere that you feel uncomfortable from the start. And then if you go a goal down, suddenly you feel as if like the ground's just swallowing you up. It's definitely what happened to Tottenham.
And that's what we're talking about when we talked at the top about the spirit of the Europa League.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a side that have got a phenomenal record at home, and we're only just scratching away the surface and getting to learn all about them.
Yeah, and Villarreal will be the next visitors. They've got a man at the helm, though, who knows this competition incredibly well.
When you get to this stage of the competition, I think it's so important to have someone there who knows how to get over the line, and there's no better example than Unai Emery.
It's okay. Tiene algo de especial, y ese especial que tiene el Villarreal pues me llamaba, y ahora que estoy dentro pues también lo valoro, ¿no? De 23 años que está el Villarreal en el fútbol de élite, pues ha jugado 16, ha jugado en Europa y luego ha tenido participación en Champions, Europa League, semifinales de Champions, semifinales varias de Europa League. Entonces es un equipo que yo admiraba y que además su idiosincrasia, su filosofía, basada mucho en el trabajo, en la cantera, en la producción propia de futbolistas desde edades tempranas. Entonces me encuentro un equipo con unos jugadores con muchas ganas de trabajar, con muchas ganas de dar un paso más, con muchas ganas de año pasado hicieron una gran temporada terminando quintos, pues darle continuidad a cosas del juego, a intentar mejorar otros aspectos y a trabajar y a dedicarle tiempo. Y sobre todo que para mí cada día de entrenamiento pues es un proceso que lo vivo con mucha ilusión, pasión, convencimiento de que algo bonito podemos ir creando. Y todo eso lo quiero ahora utilizar aquí en el Villarreal.
Unai Emery didn't mention him directly there, but I would guess that foremost in that special group of players that he's just referenced is Gerard Moreno. I would go out on a limb and say that Gerard Moreno is the most underrated player in Europe right now.
Jack, as soon as I got a message from you this weekend, I got a message from Jack this weekend just explaining very much this sort of point of view that you have. Where does it come from?
Well, he's 29 years old now and 23 goals, 8 assists in 32 games this season. Last year, 20 goals and 6 assists in 37 games. We're talking a goal contribution every 94 minutes over the past 2 campaigns, and that goes down to every 81 minutes this year. That's outrageous numbers, ridiculous numbers, and to consistently perform over this sort of 18, 19-month period at that kind of level in a side that actually draw a lot of games, don't necessarily always win, is incredible.
And I know, I think we all know where to look if suddenly we come back next week and there's only 3 pictures up here, we'll go to Jack's bedroom and find that you've stolen it to put on the wall.
Red hot form as well, scoring a hat-trick against fellow quarter-finalist Granada in domestic matters this weekend.
Yeah, and I think for Villarreal, it's all about now, once we get to this stage of the competition, having someone that can put the ball in the back of the net. At the end of the day, when you look back through those sides that have won the competition over the last 10 or 20 years, there's always been a talisman. There's always been someone that's been guiding the team from the front. He's doing a phenomenal job of doing it at the moment. It's just interesting to see whether he can carry that form through the last 3 rounds of the competition.
Well, and if he can, then there's no reason he shouldn't be starting as Spain's number 9 in the Euros this summer. 2 teams, though, with ambitions to win this trophy for the very first time. Can either of them do it?
I'm not 100% sure that we're going to see the winner from this side of the bracket. I think the stronger sides are in the other side. But in terms of progressing through, they're in the perfect place. And this is what both sides want. Both sides want to be in this position year on year and sort of stake a claim as a major European side playing within the Europa League.
Right, top 5 time, and we've spoken a lot this morning about the spirit of the Europa League, the weird, the wonderful, the unexpected. So I've asked you, Ben, to put together your top 5 experiences in the Europa League.
Great opportunity for you to sit back and relax. Let's run through this top 5.
All right, what's in at 5 then?
So I've gone pre-match ceremonies at top 5, and there's a couple in particular. I've gone sort of Celtic and Benfica.
Celtic, all the fans singing the displays.
Yeah, seeing the displays, singing You'll Never Walk Alone. But Benfica, for me, probably just pips it here. And it's because it's just such a wonderful city, a wonderful part of the world, but also hearing the fans sing the pre-match anthem, seeing the eagle fly around the stadium, a very, very special experience.
What's in at 4 then?
So at number 4, I've gone with Crvena Zvezda and that intimidating tunnel that runs underneath the stand. It takes about a minute for opposing teams to make it to the pitch. And all the way along that, throughout every single step, they can hear the fans rattling away above them. It must be incredibly intimidating.
We talked about the Maximir being scary. That's another one that's arguably scarier.
Well, just imagine being a visiting player. You not only have to do that walk, but the whole way through, you're just petrified as to what you're coming out to as well.
Yeah. What's them 3 beats it?
So, number 3, we've got fanatical fans. And I think within the Europa League, you tend to see these groups of fans that go the extra mile and go the extra mile for their team. I mean, I'm very fortunate in that at Spurs, we've got a brand new stadium, got an incredible atmosphere there. But for me, one that stands out is Sevilla. And I know that will hurt you as someone who loves Betis, but I absolutely love the atmosphere at Sevilla and everything that surrounds it as well. The incredible sort of culture there is around peñas there and supporter groups that are nearby to the stadium, and then that march all together to the stadium is incredibly important as well.
I remember a couple of things with Sevilla and the fans going to training and turning up en masse as if it's a game.
It's incredible. The fans almost, they sing as if it's a game, wait until the team come and warm down, and they almost do a victory lap before the game's even been played, sort of cheering the team on as they go and take their final warm down, getting ready for a match. It's really, really great to watch.
What's in it 2?
Number 2, we've gone for extreme environments. Now, again, we spoke about this earlier on in the show, right? This idea of making the games difficult for visiting sides, making the environment difficult for opposing sides. Imagine this, in Astana, the weather is minus 30 in terms of the temperature. Players not even able to get off the coach. Coaches having to drive inside so players can be kept out of that incredible freezing cold. Yeah, it's only really in the Europa League that you get stories like that.
It's quite a contrast from the frying pan of Seville.
Yeah, exactly. I think I would prefer Seville if I was a player.
And at number 1?
So for me, it was the Baku final. I was very, very lucky getting to go and see that Chelsea-Arsenal final in Baku, but also getting to see the way in which the Europa League was welcomed to Azerbaijan. It was like nothing I'd experienced before. So many different pieces of culture there, and a completely different way of life. An amazing city that's almost split in 2, and you get to see the old and the new merging together, and a wonderful stadium and a wonderful atmosphere as well.
And that was obviously the first time a major European final has been held in Azerbaijan. What was it about Azeri culture that stood out to you?
Well, I think, as you said, the fact that football was brought there in such a special way. You saw the culture was incredibly warm, incredibly welcoming. The fan parks are full of locals, as was the stadium. I mean, that was one of the things that really stood out to me, is you saw a lot of national pride, but you also saw a real embrace of different cultures that were coming into the country as well.
Time to put you on the spot, mate. And now there's no pressure. The bar is literally on the floor because last time out, European football expert Sam Tighe predicted there'll be 2 teams in the final, and both were out less than 24 hours later. Before we get to that, though, I want to know your favourite experience with a club in the Europa League.
Well, I'm incredibly fortunate because I've come in for a first leg show, so none of the sides that I say can go out technically at this point, which is great. But if I was going to pick a side, and not someone in the competition at the moment, but Sevilla was just an amazing experience. Going to spend time there, wonderful people, wonderful city, as we talked about before, really, really warm, but also just this style of football and the passion in the fans at games. They have such a wonderful relationship with this competition. So for me, they're the standout.
Right, it's paddle time. Who do you think is going to make the final?
Well, clearly not these guys anymore, so we'll flip them out the way. So for me, it's a Villarreal and it's an Ajax final, but I think it's going to be Ajax's year.
Right, well, you heard it here first. Ajax are going to win the competition, says Mr. Ben Haines. Josh is still in the running. Sam is very much out of it. And that's pretty much all we got time for. So all that's left for me to do is say thank you very much to Mr. Ben Haines.
Thanks for having me, mate. It's been great fun.
It's been a real pleasure. Remember, you can get in touch using the hashtag UELBreakfast. I've been Jack Collins and I'm off for some pancakes. We'll see you next time.